What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here and welcome back to the Korn discography. Today I'm going to be reviewing the band's fourth studio album entitled Issues. This album was released on the 16th of November 1999. Brendan O'Brien did the production for the first time to work with the band, and for this album it is the follow-up to the band's third album of Follow the Leader that was made back in 1998. We all know what happened around that album's era. The band went into a ton of madness in the studio and with their own experiences of a ton of alcohol drinking, drug taking, blowjob moments, and a ton of partying. When the album came out, Korn had become very successful household names. Follow the Leader was a smashing success. The album had not only become one of their fastest selling and biggest albums of all time, but the album as a whole, years later, would be defined as a crowned achievement in the history of not only metal in the 90s, but for the history of new metal. With this album, this is one album that I would always define as one of Korn's very best. I have always cited this as a near perfect album, but after coming back to the album by listening to it multiple times, revisiting the nostalgia, and I was heavily thinking about the material so much more, I would have to say that this is the last classic Korn album. The focus around the band in the studio time during this album's making and creativity was completely clean and sober for the band. There was a ton of these multiple ideas that were building more of this material, and what I really appreciate about the band here is that they were very determined and so focused to deliver a lot of inspiration around the album. And Issues is one of those Korn albums where it does define the band at one of their biggest musical strengths. It is very consistent, and as much as that I really enjoyed a lot and loved some of the material on Follow the Leader, this album is absolutely one that I would be blasting through my speakers quite a lot, if not as actively, with the first two albums being involved as the classics. But with Issues, it was always one of my most favourite Korn albums ever. The band's drummer, David Silveira, described the process as this: sounds like the music is a little more simplified and heavier, kind of heavier grooves more than the last couple. So kind of more similar to the beginning, except John is a much better singer now, so it's all coming together. The first track on the album is Dead. This is a very small introduction piece to start things up in a different ominous setting. And what is a very big noticeable idea the band decided to achieve here, they have incorporated small snippets of interludes from the early, the middle, and towards the end of the album. So this album makes a completely dynamic and different appearance for the music and for the band to explore many ideas. This track opens things with the sound of whispering voices of Jonathan's. It creates like a mournful feeling in its whole simplicity, marching drums, beautiful bagpipes, and very nice engaged background vocal, and then it leads into the first proper track, Falling Away From Me. This track is one of their best because of the darkness, haunting guitar notes, and fantastic hooks. The innocence and vulnerability is heavily shown through the lyrics around domestic abuse and the hopelessness of getting away from the tormented, tortured experiences. The big descriptions lyrically about giving up, suicidal thoughts, being beaten down into the ground, the ability to cope through the amounts of violence in the diminishing state of oneself. The band sounded excellent with their sounds on chilling guitars, buzzy bass, and rhythmic drums. It's an absolute beast of a song within the whole groove and memorable structures. Trash. This is an absolutely strong song. It's one of my most favourites on the album. The music deserves the credit as highly, as I think it is as a unique track because of the combined sounds of the instrumentation, from the mellow, spooky, unsettling sounds with the big raging chords. The band did sound so huge and precise all the way through it. The first verse is about Jonathan's experience of himself being so massive and popular, and to see young girls from the fan base to be fantasizing, giving themselves all over him. Jonathan didn't want to join in though, because he's in the relationship with his wife, but he mistreated his partner, telling lies and leaving her. His partner continues the admiration of the love for Jonathan, but he didn't feel the same way. The chorus explains his feelings about the relationship and has a different side of emotions. He couldn't help but to hurt her feelings. Jonathan's into this negative mindset and to show no positivity in the process. The second verse is about the problems about his sex addiction. He decided to have sex as the distraction. If the problems come back about the relationship, he'd do the same actions on repeat, and the mental health kept getting worse. Besides that, I adore this song. Trash is one of my most favourable Korn songs because of it being so underappreciated that I have thought that this was a song that could have been as beloved into the whole duration of the album. For You. This is the first of the interlude pieces. It goes along with the mood and daunting atmosphere. The lyrics are made as a message and as a thank you to the fans, to say that it wouldn't be all possible if us, being Korn fans, wouldn't be around if Jonathan didn't feel motivated to keep going. This is a very personal song because unfortunately, Jonathan lost his wife due to a drug overdose in 2018, and in September, Jonathan did a very brave choice to perform this piece live, and he cried, addressing to the audience that this was her favourite song. Beg for Me. A lot of the lyrics made references around Jonathan's anxiety while being off stage, but when he's on stage, it's like he's totally free and open to perform in front of his fans, because the fans shared their admiration and happiness for Jonathan and the band to feel better. But when the show's completely done, he walks off stage, the positivity then just goes away, and he feels the anxiety. The aggression from the music carries on, and it doesn't create any free space to calm down. The vocal performances were just as intensifying, and I really enjoyed that combination from the anxiety-driven lyrics, and the band decided to create their own yet attaching behaviour of the anxiousness and the uncomfortable nature. Beg for Me is a very good song. Then the next track is the second and final released single, Make Me Bad. This is a standout song by itself, just like with Falling Away From Me. The band's instrumentation is fantastic because Korn decided to share the versatility through guitar effects, production, and as well as with the tight, versatile musicianship. The weary isolation, the structure is perfect, and Jonathan's vocals were so melodic, and when he freaks out, it shares that paranoia. The lyrics were heavily interpreted from then to this very day by many fans as if the song was based around the addiction. on alcoholism. There were these surrounding lyrics on Jonathan's mental health from his childhood and his troubled past, but the substances of alcohol was a really big, noticeable idea of lyric writing. The word salvation was the reference on the alcohol. Jonathan would be drinking his alcohol to ease the anxiety, to not be alone all the time, but the more he did it, the worse it seemed to get. And it's no wonder, like I said earlier, the band had to go into a completely focused, sober direction while they were creating this album. The band were brilliant, with strong, memorable chorus and melancholic nature that was so presentable on here. And Make Me Bad is one of the other incredible songs in the Korn repertoire. It's Gonna Go Away. This is the next small interlude piece. It's less than 2 minutes and it kind of feels like an industrial experiment, something like with 9 Inch Nails. At least that's what I would like to describe it as, that. Haunting background sounds, and the lyrics are about the fame that Jonathan and company were receiving and knowing that it's not going to last forever. I really liked the idea of the multi-tracked vocals that sounded all over the place. Wake Up. This is a big, raging song, and it explodes right from the start. The bass to the guitars sounded gnarly with each other. Powerful delivery from the whole band. Then, after the introduction, the verse just changed like that into some kind of weird trip-hop style. The mysteriousness of it, though, does resonate, and it is very interesting to listen to the way the track naturally progresses until the hate-filled noise of the band returns back into action. Again, like Trash, it's so underappreciated. One of my other favourites on this album because of the musicianship and the excellent direction through the vocal variety and studio techniques based around the toxicity of the constant fighting and arguments that the bands were dealing with each other around that negative mindset. The song was made as a wake-up call to remember that the band are still together since the start, basically, and Jonathan would threaten to the band that he would quit Korn if the tensions didn't stop. Am I going crazy? The second to last interlude piece, studio sounding drums on one side and vocal effects on the other side. It's like you're hearing voices inside your head, and it's feeling so uncomfortable. It creates this tension. It's a space that is completely open, but while this really uncomfortable nature is going on, I guess that it just comes right out. It's a really good idea to put this piece in after the brutality of the last track. It's kind of like that it's wanted to, take a break after that whole insanity. Hey Daddy. Most of the lyrics were based on the heavy drug use and Jonathan's hard time to deal with the voices inside his head. They were talking around Jonathan's addictions. They were messing his head up completely, affecting his mental health. And yet, Jonathan was trying so hard to listen to these voices. He addressed that on the bridge section of this song, and to not let them be telling him what to do. Musically, it's kind of like a similar beat and tone of Trash, but it is a brilliant number. Through the change of the wah-wah and sinister guitar playing, both done from Head and Monkey, and I adore those two guys with their own unique flavours, and I dig the switch of pace and structure on the build-up as well. A neat touch indeed. Somebody Someone. This is one song that I do select as my personal favourite. It is just a monster. Big strengths of the band to sound incredibly destructive. This punishing assaulting vibe of the band, and you cannot go wrong with the monster of a breakdown section towards the end of the track. Around the lyrics, it's about Jonathan's desperation of wanting to be involved with love. He wanted to be loved by anyone. He wants to be loved by his personality and the character than the money and fame and looks. Besides that, the other lyrics were continuing the self-doubt and the difficulty about the relationship with his significant other. This is a song that was on the edge of breaking apart into chaos. I would put this song in as one of my top 10 favorite Korn songs. No way. The difficult lyrics are on Jonathan's drug abuse, and it has returned. It's a dark song because when the band or John continues the substance abuse, John describes himself as a god while he's just incredibly high on drugs. After his addictions, he kept it so far that he would be ending up relapsing. The way he'd share these emotions, he goes all over himself in paranoia and self-hatred. The guitars were packed in the high-pitched octave sounds through the intro and verse sections. Fieldy's bass sounded brilliant, as well as David's drumming. I adore the punch of the tone, and the dynamics from the production was so good. Let's get this party started. Amazing rhythm section through the clean tones and smacking drums in the opening tones. Jonathan's vocals were excellent and the chorus was really good. It's like that the melody was massive through Jonathan's singing and portrayal, but when the chorus comes in, it's so uneasy and loud that it just turned into something completely frantic and schizophrenic, based on himself getting stuck into the rut, getting caught inside himself, seeing other people as if they want to hurt him. There are other lyrics on the chorus that feels like he wants to get out from his addictions, as he is so sick and tired of his own self being such a notoriously big, consistent drug addict. Wish You Could Be Me, the last interlude piece, again with this similar industrial vibe, looping beats and strange sounds, multi-tracked vocals. It's got an interesting take on the whole weirdness musically. The lyrics deal with the sexual assault, just like what Jonathan had to deal with his own scarring experience of being molested by his babysitter. It's a pissed off message with anger and for being able to deal with the pain through the music. The second to last track, Counting. It's another rager. The band were brutal on here. It's kind of like a similar beat like on Somebody's Someone, but with that being said, it's another great song. The band were stunning while they played together. The lyrics are about when people hear Jonathan sing and scream in these songs. The band and his producers rely on him for the money. Jonathan is not all about the money. He just wants to be in the band for his own art and the music. He thinks about doing it for the fans as well. And besides that, he was getting a lot of the fame and the acclaim. Quite like the similar meaning around the lyrical content in the music industry, like on Freak on a Leash, John decides to add some references on Beg For Me and the lyric of beating down into the ground from falling away from me. The last track, Dirty, slower paced, and it's a perfect closer. The vocals were chilling. The instrumentation was clever into the whole atmosphere, and it creates this dramatic suspense. It's a bleak, darker tone, but its experimentation was incredible. Something different to what Korn would usually be doing, and you would hear some more of this impending, unsettling nature later on through the next selection of Korn albums. Previously, obviously, they would finish everything up through brutality on tracks like with Daddy and Kill You, but Dirty is a completely different, separate mood to that whole thing. And after the main part of the song, the last few minutes is just loud, static TV noises. Jonathan said this in an interview, and I quote, "We put the white noise there because it was like at the end of the album. It's like when a TV station goes off air and makes that noise, that static noise. The whole thing is feeling like a breaking point lyrically. The desperation and depression was reaching its downward spiral, and the other lyrics go through that emotional state and the experiences of being involved in the music industry. Jonathan's mental health and heavy depression is hitting rock bottom by this point. And the more I thought about this album, lyrically speaking, this is kind of like the aftermath from what the band did go through from Follow the Leader, and the band were maturing. They have been going through so many different things, through the negatives, tension, and uncomfortable surroundings. Jonathan decides, in my opinion, to create these different sets of lyrics, and he wanted to break free from what happened, but the tortured soul of himself is sadly going through the same things. It's like that he wants to improve as a person, and he is always doing that, but with his mental health that has been really hard on him, the band decided to work it all out with their own ideas to create music that matches this most personal state. And Korn had made this an accomplished album. And that's why I do love a lot of things about this album. Overall, Issues by Korn is one album that I would always be thinking to myself, it got better and better with every single listen. The more I have revisited and looked back from my previous reaction on this album, I thought it was near perfection. But now that I did come back to it, I will definitely see this album as another gem. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comments down below. Is this one of your most favourite Korn albums? Do you like or love this album? I'm really interested to know what you guys think about this album. I'm going to give Issues by Korn a 10 out of 10. The virtuosity, the complete improvements of the band of songwriters to explore many different things, the amazing duration in their career, and the growth of the band as people as well. They have made another album that is as powerfully deep, and it still is stunning and amazing album. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.